In the crumbling shelters of the Verid colony, a child held up an empty bowl. The Vren bombardment had hammered for 3 weeks. The food ran out 10 days ago.
The hunger curve is flattening. They will surrender before their next meal.
High above, a single human drop pod punched through the Vren blockade, trailing fire and screaming metal. Hell of an entrance.
Earth sent one man, one cook.
Sergeant Frank Kowalski. Earth sent a cook.
Our situation requires more than meals, Sergeant. 12,000 people are starving.
Ma'am, nobody under my care goes hungry. That's a promise.
He's either insane or a miracle. Either way, we have no better option.
Frank Kowalski had no plan yet. Only a ladle. A stubborn refusal to accept the math, and a colony that would die without him. Frank walked through the starving colony, counting the hollow eyes and the empty bowls. The Verid had been stoic, but starvation was eroding even their dignity.
Sergeant, you see the numbers. Our reserves were zeroed out 4 days ago. The Vren have every approach locked.
Every approach. Tell me what you've got, Governor. I don't believe in impossible.
The orbital blockade is tight. Ground routes are patrolled constantly. The underground tunnels collapsed in the first bombardment. We're trapped.
What about the old sewer system? Your colony's got centuries-old infrastructure. There's always a crack. Frank traced a finger along a forgotten maintenance tunnel that snaked under the Vren lines. An ancient route, flooded in parts, but if a man could crawl it. 3 clicks of dark and filth. I've cooked in worse. If I can get through once, I can prove this thing can be broken. I'm taking a pack and a crate. I'll be back by dawn or not at all.
He's volunteering to crawl into a monster's mouth, and I am letting him.
Frank strapped a crate to his back and vanished into the darkness beneath the colony. The first impossible route had a volunteer. The tunnel was a coffin. Frank crawled with a crate strapped to his back, each meter a battle against rubble and the distant rumble of Vren patrols. This is insane. But if I don't, who will? Those kids with empty bowls. Frank crawled out beyond the Vren line, recovered a hidden supply crate from a dead drop, and began the return journey.
Sergeant, you made it back. Is that supplies?
Told you I'd be back. Let's get this cooked. Nobody goes hungry today. A line formed before Frank could light the main burner. Starving Verid held bowls as he ladled out a thick stew made from rations and wild herbs.
He's not just a cook, he's a weapon, and he's only beginning.
The hunger curve has flattened. The projections predicted collapse by now. I want an explanation. Double the patrols. Check every tunnel, every crevice. Something is sustaining them.
Vekal blamed his models, never suspecting that a single human with a ladle had become the colony's lifeline. One route is a finger in the dam. I need 3, and I need local sources. The second route cut through a jungle where the air itself was acid. Frank wore a rebreather and hauled a sled of supplies through the orange mist, breathing battery acid and tripping over vines. Better than letting kids starve. The third route was underwater, a submerged pipeline that Frank swam in a jury-rigged suit, dragging sealed crates behind him. Local tubers and fungus. The chem lab says edible. Tastes like regret, but it'll stretch the rations.
Why aren't they starving? The colony is sealed unless they've found hidden food reserves. Impossible.
Vekal refused to believe a single operative could be the cause. He ordered rations cut for the conscript battalions, reserving supplies for the elite Vren. The Vren patrols intensified. Frank narrowly avoided capture twice, once hiding in a crater as a search beam swept over him. They're getting smarter, but they don't know what I am carrying. Nobody goes hungry. With 3 routes flowing, the colony now had a meager buffer. But the Vren had begun to starve their own. On a moonless supply run, Frank heard a rasping breath from a collapsed drainage pipe. A young Vren conscript lay dying, carapace cracked, eyes unfocused.
Enemy, conscript. They left him to starve. I should walk away.
Frank uncapped his canteen and held it to the creature's mouth. The water disappeared in desperate gulps.
You, human, why?
Shut up and save your strength. I am not letting anyone die in a ditch.
In the hidden pantry, Frank set a bowl of broth before the conscript. Krell stared as if it were a trick.
The commanders tell us you have no food, that you are eating your own dead.
Figures. Eat. Nobody fights hungry. This is either the smartest or stupidest thing I've ever done. But he's just a hungry kid.
Frank locked the door behind him, sealing his secret inside. The lifeline to the colony now had a fragile new thread, one that could strangle him if anyone found out.
The High Command cut our rations weeks ago. They say the colony will break first, but our bellies are hollow.
Starving their own conscripts? That's not just cruel, it's idiotic. No soldier fights on an empty stomach.
Frank began leaving sealed packets at drop points along his routes. Krell spread word among the starving conscripts.
He is called the Cook. He asks nothing but silence. Eat and remember, you owe no one a bullet.
Drop Gamma, 3 packets. Behind the East Artillery Pit. Move fast. Don't let the officers see. Desertion rate has tripled. Conscripts are vanishing from patrols. Find out where they go, or face my wrath.
The conscripts were not foolish. A bowl of stew bought more loyalty than Vekel's threats ever could.
If Vekel catches me, I'm dead. But if I stop, those kids die slow. That's no choice at all.
By week 3, Krell's network had grown. Conscripts slipped away silently, drawn by the promise of a meal and a human who asked for nothing. Vekel blamed cowardice and ordered discipline camps, never suspecting the real enemy was a cook with a ladle. Governor Tessa had been checking the ration logs every night. The numbers didn't add up. Too much food was being pulled from the stores.
Governor, it's late. Coffee?
I am not here for coffee. These packages, they're marked in Vren script. Why?
Because they're going to people who need them.
You are feeding the Vren conscripts? The soldiers who have us surrounded? Have you lost your mind?
They're starving, Governor. Their own commanders left them to die. I won't be part of that.
This is treason, Frank. If Vekel finds out, he'll execute you. If the colony finds out, they'll riot.
Maybe. But right now, about 40 Vren are not shooting at us because they have full bellies. You want the math?
He's right. It's insane, but it's working. How many lives has he saved by breaking every rule?
Tessa didn't answer. She walked out, leaving Frank alone with his ladle and his secret, and the weight of an impossible choice. Before dawn, Tessa returned to the field kitchen. Her eyes had the look of someone who had not slept, but had decided.
The numbers don't lie, Frank. You are feeding the enemy. Tell me why I should let this continue.
Because nobody fights hungry. Those kids outside didn't choose this siege. Feed them, and they'll stop being soldiers. I am not smuggling supplies. I am smuggling peace. A full belly is the best surrender I know.
He's right. It's madness, but it's working. How do you argue with food? All right, Sergeant, I'll adjust the logs. The colony will officially deny any knowledge. Unofficially will help.
Thank you, Governor. You won't regret it.
In the hidden pantry, Frank and Tessa stood shoulder to shoulder, organizing ration crates destined for the conscripts. The siege had a new front, the kitchen.
From now on, I am your silent partner. But if Vekel catches us, we both hang.
Frank's ladle had become a symbol. Neither white flag nor gun, but an open hand. The siege was broken, not by bullets, but by broth. The message from High Command was brief. Execute the conscript deserters at dawn. Make the executions visible to the colony.
They're lining us up for execution. The High Command ordered it. Make an example. Please, cook, you must help us.
This is it. The covert stuff won't stop a massacre. I need to bring everyone to the table. Literally. I am going to invite every conscript to breakfast at dawn. Openly. No more sneaking. It's time to end this.
You'll be out in the open. Vekal will shoot you down before the first bowl is served.
Maybe. But he'll be shooting at a man with a ladle, serving food to his own starving soldiers. Let him explain that. Frank fired up every burner. The field kitchen roared. He brewed enough stew to feed an army, because that was the plan. Attention, Vren conscripts. Breakfast is at the colony gate at dawn. No weapons, just hunger. You'll be fed.
So the cook reveals himself. Deploy the sniper teams. The first traitor who moves toward that gate dies.
The night stretched thick and silent. In the Vren camp, starving conscripts stared toward the colony, drawn by the faint, impossible scent of cooking. The first gray light touched the siege lines. Frank pushed long tables into the kill zone, steaming pots lined like artillery. All right, showtime. Ladle up, fear down.
One man, one ridiculous ladle, and he's stealing my entire army with soup. Hold your fire. Let's see how many traitors will die for a bowl of slop.
From the Vren camp, a single figure broke the line. Krell, carapace still cracked, antennae trembling, walked forward.
I will be first. He fed me when I was dead. I will not let him stand alone.
Krell crossed the gap. Behind him, a murmur ran through the conscripts. Then a second soldier rose, and a third. That's it. Keep coming. Food's hot and nobody's shooting. Vikal's finger rested on the trigger. The defection line grew to 20, then 40, all walking unarmed toward the smell of stew. Vikal did not fire. He could not because of mercy, but because the shot would prove the cook right for all his army to see. The trickle became a river. 100 conscripts, then 300, shed their weapons and walked toward the smell of real food. In the command bunker, Vikal's officers begged him to order fire on the deserters. He stared at the screen in silence.
If I give that order, I become the monster who shot starving boys for a bowl of soup. Let them go.
Vikal's hand relaxed. The snipers held their fire. The defection was now a flood. Krell, you made it, kid. Grab a bowl.
This is what safety tastes like.
He actually did it. 12,000 lives he saved, and he's just standing there with a ladle.
At the communal tables, Verid elders passed bowls to Vren conscripts. Children of both species sat together, licking spoons. In his now silent quarters, Vikal sat staring at the empty command hologram. The siege was no longer his. The war wasn't over on paper, but the truth was simple. You can't fight a man who feeds you. Nobody fights hungry. Easy. The formal surrender message arrived on Tessa's console within the hour. Vikal's personal seal. Unconditional. No terms.
She turned to Frank, who was still in his apron, stained and weary. It's over. Vikal has surrendered. You did it.
Good. Now let's clean up this mess and get some real food cooking. From the gate, he watched the Vren camp. Banners being furled, artillery turned aside. The field kitchen still steamed behind him, a quiet monument.
Krell approached in a fresh conscript uniform, his antennae high. Sergeant Kowalski, I have no words. You gave me back my life.
You gave yourself back, son. Remember that. They clasped hands, human and Vren, over the scarred table where bowls had been filled all morning. Tessa gathered the colony before the open gate. She spoke of an impossible miracle, a human cook who walked through walls.
Sergeant Frank Kowalski did not fire a shot. He saved us all with a ladle and a stubborn heart. We will not forget.
The cheer that followed was not for a defeated enemy, but for the quiet, relentless kindness that had fed them all and ended a war. Frank Kowalski sat alone in his field kitchen, the last embers dying in the fire pit. The datapad glowed on his knee. After action report. Mandatory paperwork. He typed slowly, then stopped. Supply chain reestablished. Local biomass integrated. Enemy combatants voluntarily disarmed. He deleted it all. The truth didn't fit military language. He stared at the blank screen, then typed 5 words. He typed, "Nobody fights hungry. Easy." The cursor blinked at the end of the sentence. He set the pad down.
Tessa appeared with 2 cups of coffee. She read over his shoulder, a tired smile forming on her lips. She leaned closer. "Nobody fights hungry. Easy. That's your after-action summary? 5 words?"
It's what happened. Guns failed. Bombs failed. A full belly did what nothing else could.
He's right. How do you argue with that? The whole war turned on a ladle and stubborn kindness.
I am done here, Governor. He stood, pulled off his apron, and hung it on the hook. Kitchen's clean. Work's finished.
The apron hung limp and stained, a white flag of a different kind. The cook's war was over. Frank walked the colony streets one last time. Markets were reopening, laughter replaced shellfire. Verid and Vren children drew chalk figures together. One sketch showed a man with a ladle and skull paint. He stopped at a small stone memorial. Names of those who didn't survive the hunger. He stood silent.
Could have saved more. Should have started sooner. But you don't win wars with regret.
Krell approached, now in a liaison officer's uniform. His antennae stood high, his eyes clear.
Sergeant, you are leaving?
Someone else needs a cook. But you need this more than I do. Keep feeding the peace.
Krell accepted the ladle. Later, he would place it on a crate for all to see. A symbol, not of war, but of what breaks it. Frank's silhouette shrank on the cratered road. He didn't look back. Behind him, the ladle glinted in the sun. The cook's war was over. But the lesson would remain. The loudest victory had been a meal served without a single shot. The datapad sat on the crate, its screen still glowing. 5 words, coffee-stained. Nobody fights hungry. Easy. Sergeant Frank Kowalski, somewhere far away now, grinned, his skull paint smeared. But his legacy would not. In the field kitchen, the grease-stained apron hung on its hook, a white flag that had waved over a silent battlefield. Verid and Vren children drew chalk figures on the pavement. One showed a man with a ladle and skull paint. The battered ladle rested on a crate, surrounded by wildflowers. No monument had ever demanded less or meant more. On the kitchen wall, 2 handprints, one human, one Vren, cradled the corner where enemies first ate together. Outside the colony, a Vren siege cannon rusted under a shroud of vine. The war had no place here anymore. At the gate, Vren and Verid elders shared a last bowl of stew. The children played tag between the tables. From orbit, the Verid colony shone green and whole. No smoke, no siege lines, only a world choosing to heal. A bowl of stew sat on the crate beside the report. Steam rose. The battle was over. Nobody fights hungry. Easy. The colony gate stood open at dawn, a habit that remained. Every morning, the field kitchen fired up its burners. Krell supervised the cooking, the battered ladle always at his station. "The cook taught us," he said. "Feed them, and they are not your enemy." In his spare quarters, Veckel stared at the old drawing of food a conscript child had given him. He had not eaten for days, but his pride was a harder thing to starve. A shuttle prepped for departure. Frank's apron was folded inside a sealed crate, along with a datapad and a note to the next cook who would answer the call. The note read only, "Nobody fights hungry. Easy. Someone else is next. Keep the kitchen hot." From orbit, The varied colony glistened. A small, scarred world that had traded artillery explosions for the clatter of bowls. No fleet guarded its skies. No treaty guaranteed its peace. Only a man who had once crawled through dirt with a crate on his back, believing a meal could do what armies could not. The after-action report remained in the archives, its coffee stain a monument. And whenever a new siege loomed, someone would pull it up, read those 5 words, and understand. A bowl of stew, still steaming, was placed on a crate beside the report. A ladle rested across it. The battle was over. The lesson had just begun. Somewhere, Frank Kowalski looked up at a different sky. He grinned. Then he got back to cooking. Commander Veckel had not left his quarters since the defection. The drawing of food lay on his console, a silent accusation.
They were starving because I ordered it, and a human cook undid me with a ladle.
His second-in-command entered, helmet under arm, voice sharp with anger. The High Command demands an attack. We can still crush them.
Crush them with what? Half our army is eating breakfast in their courtyard. The siege is broken. I will not order another shot. Let the conscripts eat. Let the galaxies see what we became.
He removed his command crest, a heavy, ornate thing he had worn for decades, and placed it on the console.
Open a channel to the colony governor. Unconditional surrender. All forces stand down.
The words tasted like ash, but they were the first honest order he'd given in weeks. He stood by the viewport, watching the distant colony gate. Smoke rose, but it was cooking smoke now.
Nobody fights hungry. I wish I had learned that sooner.
Vekal transmitted the formal ceasefire to every Vren unit. The guns fell silent across the valley, a stillness more powerful than any bombardment.
I signed this not because we were beaten in battle, but because we were beaten by a better idea.
His signature sealed the unconditional surrender. The Vren High Command would disavow him, but the siege was over.
I accept your surrender, Commander Vekal. May we never meet as enemies again.
The colony gate, sealed for months, scarred by attempts to breach it, rolled open wide. No more siege.
You see? The cook's way worked. We are not killers anymore. We are just hungry.
Vren soldiers stacked their rifles. Varid colonists brought out bowls. The instruments of war were replaced by the tools of peace. In the empty field kitchen, steam still rose from a pot left bubbling. A fresh bowl sat for the next hungry traveler, whoever they might be. The war ended not with a bang, but with breakfast. A truth from a cook that the galaxy would not forget. Nobody fights hungry. Easy. Somewhere, a cook with skull paint and a stained apron had already moved on to the next kitchen that needed him. The Vren High Command transmitted a recall order for Vekal. He would face trial, but the commander never left the bunker.
The siege is over. We are not victors and vanquished. We are survivors who learned that a shared meal can break a war.
Behind her, the kitchen wall bore 2 handprints. One human, one Vren painted in white and blue. A new seal of the colony. The battered ladle rested on its crate, surrounded by offerings of food and scribbled notes from children who would never know hunger again.
I will train our next cooks. The message must spread. Fill the bowl before you raise the weapon.
In the empty field kitchen, steam still rose from a pot left bubbling. A fresh bowl sat for the next hungry traveler, whoever they might be. From orbit, the Varid colony shone like a green pearl. No war machines clouded its atmosphere, only the haze of cook fires. The after-action report remained in the archives, its coffee stain a monument. And whenever a new siege loomed, someone would pull it up, read those 5 words, and understand. Sergeant Frank Kowalski never stopped cooking. Somewhere on a new frontier, skull paint gleaming in the firelight, he stirred another pot and grinned. The legend of the cook who walked through walls spread across the stars. A lesson carved in broth and stubborn kindness. Nobody fights hungry. Easy. On the first anniversary of the siege's end, Vered and Vren shared a feast. No weapons, no speeches, just bowls, just laughter. In the colony square, a bronze ladle stood atop a stone pedestal. Its plaque read only, "Nobody fights hungry. Easy."
Governor Tessa transmitted the after-action report to every colony on the verge of siege. "This is our weapon," she declared.
Light years away, a terrified colony opened a holographic message. The face of a Vren conscript appeared, holding a ladle.
Krell's voice. "We were soldiers. Now we are cooks. Let us show you how to break a siege with a meal."
On a new frontier, a dropped pod screamed through the atmosphere. The hatch blew, and Frank Kowalski stepped out. Ladle in hand, he found the starving shelters, set up his field kitchen, and lit the burners. The familiar scent of broth rose into a foreign sky.
A child with an empty bowl watched him work. Frank tapped the ladle against the pot. "You'll eat today."
The galaxy learned that hunger could not be bombed into submission, and wherever a pot steamed, a siege was doomed before it began. Centuries later, the coffee-stained datapad rested in a museum. The label, Sergeant Frank Kowalski's recipe for peace. A child lifted a bowl. Steam curled around her face. She had never known hunger. She would never know war. On the crate, the battered steel ladle rested. Beside it, a fresh bowl of stew. The kitchen was always open. A stained apron hung on a hook. Below it, chalk drawings from a dozen species. A figure with a ladle, a skull-painted grin. Across the galaxy, in a quiet archive, the datapad still glowed. 5 words, the answer to every siege that ever was. Somewhere, a cook with skull paint and a grease-stained apron looked up at a new sky. He grinned. Then he got back to cooking. The legend was simple. No army could withstand a meal offered in sincerity. The cook had walked through walls, and every wall after him crumbled. A child asked, "Who was the cook?" An elder answered, "He was a man who refused to let anyone go hungry." The ladle sat in the museum, but it never felt like a relic. It felt like a question. Will you feed them, or will you fight them? Steam rose from a pot on a new world. The answer had not changed. It never would. Nobody fights hungry. Easy. From orbit, 1,000 worlds glowed. On each, a field kitchen steamed. The cook had walked through more walls than anyone could count. On each world, a stained apron hung by the fire. A battered ladle waited. A bowl stayed full. The recipe never changed. Local roots, a dash of stubbornness, and the refusal to let anyone go hungry. A child in a distant colony lifted her bowl. Steam warmed her cheeks. She smiled because she had never seen a gun. In the archives of a dozen civilizations, the same 5 words glowed on ancient screens. An heirloom of peace. Sergeant Frank Kowalski, if he was ever just one man, stirred a pot somewhere and looked up. The stars looked back. He had never fired a shot. He had never raised a flag. He had only fed the hungry. And the galaxy, without a treaty or a vote, had learned. Nobody fights hungry. Easy. The steam from the pot curled into the void. Somewhere, a new child lifted a bowl for the first time. Nobody fights hungry. Easy.